Parafam, today's episode will be a very special episode dedicated to all the fathers. For every single father that's out there, we want to wish you a very, very special Happy Father's Day. We celebrate you. Hey, what's going on, Parafam? As always, it's your boy Joe Hinton, and today, man, we have a special topic. As we know, we're approaching Father's Day, and we wanted to take a moment to really talk about all that it is to be fathers, what fathers mean to society, and really the significance of fatherhood. So today, I wanted to bring in a special guest to have this conversation and sit down with another man and have a heart-to-heart about all that is to be a father, right? And man, I couldn't think of a better gentleman to have this conversation with. This gentleman is a business strategist and a consultant, but better than that, he's a good man. He's a husband, he's a father, and one of the best men that I know. Parafam, welcome Barry McCauley. Barry, what's up, B? What's up?
What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Hey, listen, I couldn't be so more proud, more happy to have you with us. You're one of the best men that I know. And I thought, man, we need to have this conversation about fatherhood, man. And all the nuances, the benefits and the blessings, the aspects of it that, you know, men may not always get a chance to share, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, my man B is perfect for this conversation.
Likewise, man. Listen, you know, we talk about this all the time. You know, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm a mirror and reflection of the guy that you are. So you
man.
saying that about me, listen, it's likewise.
Oh yeah, man. Birds of the feather, they do flock together.
Yes, sir.
Yes, man. So you and I both have families.
Yeah.
Men that have been married for years.
Yes.
Men that have children.
Yes.
We're men that stand next to other men that walk in similar paths, who are dedicated and faithful to their professions, to their families, to their wives, to their children, and all those types of things, right?
Yeah.
And we're approaching a day that, oftentimes doesn't really get the celebration that we may think it deserves.
Oh, most definitely.
Right?
Most definitely.
I mean, coming on the heels of Mother's Day.
Right.
It's hard to compete with Mother's Day,
Right,
man, right? But, I was thinking like, oh, man, coming into Father's Day, man, this might be a good time to have a real conversation
Most definitely.
about, all the nuances of being a father, the things that we've learned as we've traversed the endeavor of being a good father and the blessing that is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, throughout that journey, there's so many life lessons. There's so many seasons that there are insights that you gain. You're able to take where you currently stand and look retrospectively and understand things you may not have understood before.
Yeah.
But there may be things you currently walk into that on a mental, spiritual, and emotional level may not always be heard in your endeavor to be a loving and impactful and just a man and a father that honors God while you're doing it.
That's right. Right.
All right, so let's first talk about just fatherhood in general, man.
Okay.
All right. How many children do you have, man?
I have three.
3 children.
3 children.
Okay.
Yep.
Me, myself, I have 2.
Okay.
Married for how many years?
We've been married now, wow, man. 13 years?
13 years. Yes,
13
yes,
years, man.
Yes.
Together 20.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, like, we literally just celebrated 20 years of being together this year.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Appreciate
man.
that,
Respect.
brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, me and my wife been together a total of 17 and a half years.
Yeah.
We dated 2.5 years, been married 15 years,
Yeah.
man. So, man, that time passes
Oh,
fast, bro.
quick, so fast.
Super fast.
So fast. It's like now, like, my oldest just graduated from North Carolina A&T.
Oh, man. Congrats.
And then my 2 younger ones, I have an upcoming 7th grader and an upcoming 5th grader.
Oh, wow, man.
So, yeah man, it is.
Yeah.
All girls, girl dad.
Oh, man, you're deep in it.
Oh, yeah.
You're deep in it.
I'm all in. I'm
Yeah,
all
you're
in.
you're all the way in
There's
there.
no turning back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you do.
And so it's a beautiful thing, though, man, and being a dad and being a girl dad.
Yeah, man,
And
wow.
I think me and my wife had the conversation not too long ago. I was like, man, God knew what he was doing. He gave me girls.
Wow.
Because I don't know if I would be able to handle boys.
Oh, wow.
Bec-
Yeah, I want to talk about that, like all that we learn just being fathers. But in your case, you're like, oh, okay, I have girls, right?
Yeah.
And the insights and the perspectives that has given you, and then the weight of that, and how it challenges you as a man and all those things.
Yeah.
Let me throw that out there real quick. So I have a son and a daughter.
Uh-huh.
My son is approaching the 3rd grade. My daughter is approaching the 2nd. So my son will be 9 in December. He has a late birthday.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, baby, right? And then my daughter's turning 7 in July, right? So, we coming right behind you,
Yeah,
but you're more than halfway there, you know what I'm saying? So you put in this work, right?
Yeah.
Let's first talk about like what it means to you to be a father. Like, what does that mean to you? What's like the definition of being a father to you?
I'll say, when you introduced me, you said, I was a business strategist, consultant. A lot of times we come up with all these titles and roles that we play, right? Yeah. However, like outside of being a man of God, husband and father are like the most important.
Oh, yeah.
And so that fatherhood piece means absolutely everything to me.
Yeah.
I will sacrifice everything for my kids.
Oh, yeah.
And because that's the ultimate show of love, right?
Indeed.
Is that sacrifice.
Indeed.
The Bible talks about, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son.
Yes.
There's absolutely nothing I won't do for my kids.
Yeah.
And so being a father means just that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're emphasizing just the willingness to put your life on the line.
Oh, most definitely.
And to sacrifice all that you are for the health and the productivity of your children and what they need and all those types of things, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and how heavy is the burden of that, right? And when I talk about burden, I know that term can be looked at in a negative perspective, but there's some stuff in life that you need to understand the gravity of the thing, right? And there needs to be a seriousness that you go into it with. Mm-hmm. There needs to be intentionality. There needs to be a high regard and respect for it as you engage and traverse that thing, right? It's like if you become the president, you need to not haphazardly play that role.
You need to know that this is a serious thing. Like this is not a play thing.
That's right.
Anytime I'm referring to my kids, I talk about my kids, I show up for my kids.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's funny because it's a trait that I think I picked up from my dad. Is my resting face. And a lot of times it'd be like, oh, my wife Patrice, she'll say, "Oh, look at your face. Why your face is balled up?" And I'm like, this is normal for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's probably usually a conversation we're having in relation to our kids.
Yeah.
But that is a serious thing. And when you show up for your kids like that, you have to be serious. And my kids know when I show up, it's a serious thing because I love them. Like I love them. They're a part of me. They came from me.
Right.
And that journey of fatherhood, it changes you.
Oh yeah.
And so once you become a father, life is real then at that point.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you understanding the mandate of being a father, what informed your awareness of the severity of it and the seriousness and the intentionality that it deserves? What informed that for you?
So, ironically, I grew up for 14 years of my life with my mom. My dad was around, but he wasn't in the household.
Okay.
He made sure that we were taken care of financially, but his physical presence was not always there.
Yeah, so the daily example of his presence and how he navigated things from day to day, his presence to be there to speak to the minute thing and the significant thing, there was a lack there because of whatever things transpired.
Yeah. Yep. So my parents divorced 4 or 5.
Oh, okay.
And however, my grandfather, who's probably after Jesus is him with me.
All right.
And so, like, he's up there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's like that guy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so, best friend, learned so much from him, but I lost him at 8.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, he's had the most influence on my life.
Yeah.
What I saw of him being a man of God, being a father, being a husband, being an active person in our community, that's what I wanted to be.
So he was the blueprint.
He was.
Yeah.
Now, at 14, I move in with my dad.
Okay.
And I see my dad day to day. I see the grind. I see what it takes. And what I saw from him was how serious he took the responsibility of being a dad.
Okay.
From the standpoint of, I may not be here physically with you day to day, but when you need me, I'm going to make sure that I provide what's necessary for you.
I'm pulling up.
My pops was always big on providing.
Yeah.
And because he lost his dad at 5.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so there were things that he went without because his dad was just not there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that led him to be the dad that he was. I saw those things, and I took parts of that from what I saw from him, what I saw from my grandfather, and then just off examples that I saw in the Bible, and then, you know, some beautiful things that we maybe saw on TV here and there. Uncle Phil, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Things that we saw growing up. You know, I'm a 90s baby. I grew up I'm an 80s baby, but I grew up in the 90s. So, you know, we all saw Fresh Prince and saw Uncle Phil.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so that's what we aspired to be.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so,
of course, of course.
That played a role in it too.
Yeah, man. So as you begin to enter fatherhood and try to apply the examples that you saw, what strengths did you have to pull from to actually execute these ideals? Because what I found is that, you know, when you're growing up, we all internalize things we observe, the good and the bad, the positives and the negatives. And we often come to conclusions in our mind. We say, oh, you know, this part I'm going to do. But then we always have the kind of like, I nevers and, oh, I'm changing these things, or I'm going to be type of thing. And we take that into other phases of our life, whether it be marriage or just being an adult and then fatherhood. But as you are engaging it, even if you intend a thing, just the actual execution and application to yield the results, there becomes a deeper level of familiarity
1000%.
with the terrain of 1000%. Trying to execute these things. And it I find it gives you a higher awareness of, man, I need something special, you know, to successfully achieve what I'm endeavoring to do, because it's going to leave a lasting imprint on your children that will speak forever, really, you know? And every day matters, right? So, you know, in your journey of being a father and having these desires to pull from the models you saw and then execute, what have you come to learn, and what's been the sources you draw from to execute?
So, a lot of times we push back on a lot of things that we see growing up that you mentioned about, right? I'm going to give you an example. My dad would pick me up from practice, right? And my dad was an entrepreneur, which is what sparked the entrepreneurship in me.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing that I took from him outside of the stern resting face of the desire to be an entrepreneur. But he would pick me up, and as you know, as an entrepreneur, there are things that you just deal with that most people don't automatically deal with. And that struggle, that those stresses, those things, you internalize those things.
Yeah.
And so when he picks me up, he's not in father mode.
Oh, yeah.
He's not in dad mode. He's still in entrepreneur mode.
Yeah.
And so we would ride about 30 minutes from practice all the way to my house. And we wouldn't say a word to each other.
Because he's like decompressing.
He's decompressing
from the day.
Yeah, yeah.
And listen, here's the thing. I mean, whether a man is an entrepreneur or just wearing, you know, having the regular job, if he really is taking on a certain level of responsibility for his household as a whole, the decompression is real, right? It's real.
Bruh, and let me tell you something, man. And I think those are the things that we're going to get into and we're going to touch on, because that's the real part of it, right?
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize it until I got into the space. And
yes,
exactly what you're talking, until you're in it, you don't really know.
Yes.
But as a child, I'm like, dang, he didn't ask me how my day was.
Yeah.
Like, he don't know what I went through today. I could have, like, you know, I could have had a bad practice. Or some girl could have been like, you know, nah, you ugly. Like, you know, anything that I experienced that. But he never even asked.
Right.
So, but that bothered me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until years later, like, I think we went, ironically, he and I went and seen Fences together.
Oh, wow. Great Denzel. Like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so
he asked, why don't you like me? He said, what type of question is that? Yeah, it's my favorite moment in the movie. But
and so it was that kind of moment, because, like, my pops was really tough on me. And I was like, man, why is he so tough on me? Like, very similar to those situations. Yeah. And it was during those conversations, I was like, man, did you realize that when you would pick me up, we'd go 30 minutes, we wouldn't even talk?
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I had to be intentional when I was have time with my girls.
Right.
To say, hey, how was your day?
Right.
I would even have a list of questions. Okay, like, okay, tell me one thing that made you happy today, and one thing that made you sad today.
Yeah.
One thing that maybe made you cry. Was there anything that that you could change? What would it be about your day?
Yeah.
Just to spark the conversation. And it was like almost like pulling teeth somewhat.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand why.
Right.
My younger ones didn't. My oldest, I told her, I said, I intentionally have these conversations with you because me and my dad would literally ride 30 minutes together and not talk at all.
Man, let me tell you something. You and I are very similar. I every day ask my kids, hey, tell me something good that happened today.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me what was the worst part of today.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get those conversations going.
Yep.
And it's from some of the same vantage points, right? But let me tell you something that I understand internally. Well, the level of internal health, mental health, even spiritual health I have to be in to genuinely do that.
Mm-hmm.
It takes effort
It
at
does.
times.
It does.
Because when you take on a position in your household that says the buck stops with me,
Yes.
you know, you talked about what I deem as accountability.
Mm-hmm.
You said, now that I'm a father, I'm willing to lay my life on the line and make all the sacrifices that need to be made so that me and mine have it and the buck stops with me.
Yeah.
So you're putting it all there out on the line. And, you know, when you go out into your day, even if you're working a regular job, let alone if you're doing something entrepreneurial, how much you give in that day. Well, sometimes, just like you testified, as a kid, well, you don't know how much the consumption that just comes with your existence is being consumed off of that father.
Yes.
And he's pressed with that every day to make sure that he provides what he needs. And once he gets in that car to pick you up from practice, it may have taken you a long time to have a consciousness that he needs a moment to decompress a little bit from everything he might have battled during the day, right? To be his best self for you.
You're exactly right in the fact that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's funny because now you're talking about relationship, right?
Yeah.
And being a safe space for someone.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we talk about now in this day and age.
Yeah.
We talk about, you know, mental health and what it's like, especially in particular for black men and black people in general.
Right.
Now it's to the point where my girls will say, Daddy, how was your day?
Oh, man, listen to me. I mean, you know, my son is a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
But my daughter, she's 6. She is the one that she'll just come up to me and, how are you feeling today, Daddy?
Yeah.
How are you? You know?
Yeah.
And I try not to put that type of burden on her as a 6-year-old, but she doesn't know what that does for me. It does a lot for me.
A lot.
That she says, how are you feeling today, Daddy?
Yeah.
Did you have a good day?
You feel heard.
Yes.
Because in a world that sometimes for us, where we feel like we don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to silence our voice in certain, you know, environments, to know that this sweet, innocent soul is concerned about her dad.
Right. It gives a different fuel because often we're utilizing the silencing of our voice as a form of fuel to keep going, right? And it may not be the most healthy fuel, but it's what society teaches us to utilize in order to persevere and keep going and all that. Because if we dare kind of let out like, man, I'm feeling a little weak, it may make us plummet towards that weakness.
Yeah.
So we say, oh man, I got to keep it silent, shield those that I love from things, and just go after what we all need, right? But having a person kind of refuel you a little bit just by showing care, right? And showing, Daddy, how was your day?
How was your
day?
How
did you feel?
Yep.
Like, are you tired today? You know, let alone, can I do anything for you?
Listen,
oh, man, you know?
And I think that's a part of that whole conversation, man, is that when you look at what fathers endure every single day. And see, the thing is, like, I would see my dad, he would pace in the middle of the night. And at the time, my dad smoked cigarettes. And he was smoking cigarettes that would lead to him having strokes later on in life. But it was that stress, that burden that he wouldn't talk about it. And I didn't know. But I would just see him, I was like, dang, like it's late and he's still up, you know?
You probably at that time period too couldn't, you know, connect.
Correct.
That maybe this is his de-escalation. This is my moment. I pace a little bit. You know, I smoke my cigarettes. It gives me a little bit of a dopamine and a nicotine hit so I can relax a little bit.
Yeah.
and kind of try to de-stress.
Yeah.
Because I got to go to sleep and wake up to this again tomorrow.
Again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you know, this mortgage is due.
Yeah.
My son got to eat. You know, and I'm not the only child, so it's like I got other kids I got to provide for.
Yeah.
Whatever family issues that's going on, and then I got a business that I'm running too.
Yeah.
And then I'm a black man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm trying to break all these different generational curses,
Right.
stereotypes,
Right.
all that, the things that we still deal with today.
Yeah. You know, often as black men, you know, through the evolution of this country, you know, people lose sight of some people are still first generation something.
Most
you know,
definitely.
First generation fill in the
Most
blank,
definitely.
right?
Most definitely.
So many people are not only trying to just be successful in general, but they're trying to put the weight of the world on their back to be completely transformative to everything beyond them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And, you know, so the weight of that. And I think the world is structured, and particularly spiritually, some people would call it the universe, but, you know, I believe it's spiritually, right? When you feel called to be transformative, there are going to be forces that will oppose you. And, you know, it's taxing, like the stress and strain that puts on you to navigate that and be successful, it takes a toll, right?
Yeah.
And as black men, often, whether we're tapping into the sources that's going to most optimally empower us to do that or not, we feel that burden often, you know, trying to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
And so that can then spill into the home. And sometimes we navigate it well, sometimes we don't. But as you've shared, well, children are seeing it every day. They're seeing and they're interpreting. And they may not be translating that and interpreting it as you intend, right?
Yes.
And figuring out how to, you know, navigate that and not do more damage in your intent to do good sometimes.
And you know what? The other thing is too, a lot of times I think for us, it's almost like we have to choose.
Yes.
Where, you know, God has called us to be great in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
And I pray the prayer, I said, God, you know, I want to be a great husband. I want to be a great father. I want to be a great businessman. I want to be a great brother. I want to be a great mentor. I want to be great in everything that I do. I don't want me being a great businessman to allow my marriage or my being a father suffer as a result of that.
Right.
Which I can say at a stage in my life it did. Because I was so solely focused on providing.
Yeah. Bent towards one particular aspect of it.
And changing the narrative of my life because of the way I grew up.
Yeah.
And because I saw my dad provide. Like you gotta grind it out, you gotta do this, and this. And so there was a point in time where it was like I was there physically, but I wasn't there mentally.
Yeah.
In so many cases, that's the case.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I'm at a recital because my girls dance. And so I'm at a recital. I'm at a dance competition, but I got my computer here and I'm doing work and I'm trying, oh, go, baby, go. And I'm still like, yeah. And my wife's like, did you see what happened?
Right.
Yeah, I saw. You didn't see what happened.
Oh, yeah.
And so it took a while for me to say, okay, I have to put this down.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Putting things in place so that I can really be in the moment.
Yeah.
And it took some adjustment. It took some things happening and readjusting in my life to say, okay, all right, God gave you this gift, these gifts, and these beautiful girls that you have. Cherish them, because that's the only thing that we can't get back is time.
For sure.
Like if you lose $500 today, you can go out and earn it and get it right back.
Yeah.
But that time that you get with your kids, you can never get that back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of times men don't have the opportunity to admit how challenging it is to try to be everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you often feel that it's impossible to bat 100 on everything.
Is what I'm doing enough? Like, everybody's still pulling, like, and I'm giving everything I got.
Yeah, it'll never be enough. I'll just put it in a practical sense. You know, over the years, I've really worked very hard professionally, different business ventures and all these different things. And, you know, there were seasons to where I'd spend all day working or in my office office and doing different things. I go in early into the office, 6, 7 in the morning. My head doesn't come back out until 7 something at night. Well, at that point, I have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Do I go to the gym for an hour? Well, if I go to the gym, just try to take care of my body.
Yep.
And it's not just taking care of my body. This may be the first time I saw some sunlight and some fresh air and had true people interaction and not just corporate drones, but true people interaction, right? Well, if I do a solid hour of working out and I come back, well, I haven't interacted with my wife or my kids in a healthy way all day. And now my kids are preparing to eat dinner and get ready for bed and all these different types of things, right? So now I feel like, hey, I'll try to have a quality moment, but it may not have been enough.
Right.
But if I then decide, nope, I'm not going to go to the gym, I'm going to spend that time with the kids, well, now you got the dad body, man. And you can't, come on, man. You know
and then where does your peace come from?
Right.
Where's your me time, your mental health time, where you can really truly decompress? Because again, if you don't take that time for yourself, are you showing up 100% for them? And giving them the full Joe that they deserve?
Yes.
Without taking that time.
Right. I don't think it's truly possible. You may be giving people a fragmented portion of yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't take that time, but often there's not a lot of guidance as to how men are supposed to take that time. I feel like conversationally it's a wide gap. Yeah. It's a conversation of either men are not present and not doing what they should be doing, or you're paying for the sins of your forefathers. You need to go overdrive.
You do.
In what you're being for, your family. And there's not a whole bunch of guidance about balance all the time.
True.
There's also not enough conversation around the type of support men need to be their healthiest self and their best self, so that they feel like they have the capacity to say, you know what, I'm going to put this laptop down. I'm not going to feel like I need to do overdrive right here so I can be in this moment and not fear that, oh man, if I didn't take these extra minutes, that's $1 not gained, that's progress not made, that's something that's going to show up on me later, right?
And what you'll find is your kids will remember those moments.
Yeah, for sure.
There were so many times when my kids will say, oh, Daddy, you got to work? And so ironically, my wife, she works in education. And so the times when they would be out of school and I'm actually going to work, Daddy, you got to go to work? Like, why can't you stay home with us? And I was like, baby, Dad doesn't have that. Dad doesn't work in education. So, so I have to have a little, my job is a little different.
Right.
Or if I'm up late, Daddy, you still working? Oh man, like Daddy always working.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying,
but
then you look around and you say, oh man, but y'all got a nice house. You got all the stuff you want. You're able to do this. You're able to go on these trips. You're able to do these things. Like, they just don't happen. They happen because Mom and Daddy have to work.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that at that age.
Yeah, it takes a while for that consciousness to be there.
Yeah.
And you can be intentional about trying to, have some more mature conversations with them along the way and stuff like that. And sometimes it requires that.
Yeah.
But it does take a while for them to even value, all these other nuances,
that go along with the things that they enjoy, However, I think there came a time when I even appreciated the closeness that I had in taking my kids to school. And being intentional about that time, right? And so I take my middle daughter to school every day. I pick her up. And so I rode the school bus growing up. And so I missed I didn't get the opportunity to spend that kind of one-on-one. Like I said, my dad would pick me up from practice, but we would go 30 minutes without speaking to each other.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is we'll get in the car, we'll listen to a short sermon, and then we'll talk. Oh, okay, my daughter will pass houses. She's into real estate. She loves big houses. And so you get to dive deep into the things that they have going on. I pick her up from school. How was your day? Okay, I want to know the tea. Like, what's going on? Like, what little girl said this? Like,
no, she did.
No, I'm all in. Yeah, what? Like, girl, no. And what you say?
Yeah.
I know you didn't let her say that to you.
You're
you know?
right.
And so, do I need to come up there? Daddy come up to the school. And see, that's the other thing, too, right?
Yeah.
So, I'll be up at the school, and the assistant principal, she'll be like, don't start that today, Mr. Berry. I can't. I was like, no, something happened with my baby.
Yeah.
I need to know. I need to figure out what happened. And so, my girls know that. That's how their parents are going to show up. In particular, their dad is going to show up that way.
Yeah.
And so those are moments that I cherish the most.
Yeah.
Those times being there. And so, like I said, I'm a girl dad. My 2 youngest daughters, they compete competitively in dance.
Mm-hmm.
They see me as if I had sons on a football field.
Yeah.
I cheer for them. I go after it. I'm a prop dad.
Yeah.
They see me go all in. And a lot of times, that's the other drawback is that, as dads and as fathers, if we have, sons, we're going to be at every,
Right.
basketball game, every baseball, t-ball, because they're doing what we feel like is like, they're being men or
Right.
young boys. But our girls need to see us the same way.
Yeah.
They need to feel that level of support. They need
You know
to feel
what?
that love.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about this. A lot of times, whether we have a framework for it or not, when we have sons, we just innately have this consciousness of the imprint of ourselves from an identity perspective that we need to make sure is there through presence, through deed, through action, through, influence, all that type of stuff. I want to talk to you about the power of the imprint of a father on a child in general, let alone a daughter, right? And how it informs identity. Like you having, prioritized and been very intentional to be present. What have you learned and what have you seen come to fruition? And I know you're still in progress about these intentional steps and how it informs shaping their identity as young women, right? And getting an imprint on them. And what do you think can only uniquely be done through a father?
So there's 2 things. The first thing I'll say is as a girl dad, you have to tap into your emotions.
Oh, yeah.
That's what really gets it, right?
Yeah.
Because as a man in general, we typically don't express emotions well. Most men don't. It's just not. It's something that we were taught as young boys. Is that's a sign of weakness. If you cry, it's you're being soft.
Yeah.
And so it's knocking down all those stereotypes, and that's been the biggest thing for me because again, I grew up that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I really had kids and I started, tapping into therapy and counseling and things like that. You have to show emotion. Your kids have to see you show emotion because they need to see that it's okay for daddy one to cry, to show that level of emotion. So now they feel comfortable having those emotions.
Yeah.
And so that's been the first thing, right? Is being emotional, being able to connect on an emotional level. They've softened me because I had a hard exterior from birth until I had kids, and even sometimes even to after I had kids.
Yeah.
And then the other part too, that identity piece is for my girls, we have open dialogue conversations. I want you, I pray over them, one, before they get out the car, and then at night.
Yeah.
I tell them, God allowed them to be their bold, authentic self.
Yeah.
And encouraging them, loving on them, hugging them, so they feel that love is vital in our household.
Yeah.
Especially for me. I love on my girls, man. And I want them to see that that's what real love looks like.
Yeah.
I stopped disciplining my daughters. Sorry, I thought I turned this off. I stopped disciplining my girls because I didn't want them to think that that's what love looks like.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want this, because the whole thing, I'm doing this because I love you.
Yeah.
And so I don't want that to be the idea of the vision of love.
Because there's multiple ways in which, you can bring admonishment and correction and things like that. It doesn't just have to be in a physical way.
Yeah.
The most powerful thing is when the hearts of two people are knitted together and you can just through words share and they're pricked because of the connection.
Yeah.
And just not wanting to disappoint you.
No. And I think and that's the other thing too, right? Because every child that you have is different.
Yeah, the makeup is different. Yeah, for sure.
And so you love them different. You love them the same, but in different ways.
Yes.
So for instance, I have to be a little bit more stern on my oldest because she's going to test me. She's going to test me. My middle daughter, she's a little bit more sensitive. And so I could just say, I was disappointed in you. And she'll start crying. I'm like, oh God, like I didn't mean it for you to go that way. My youngest, oh, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
You can yell at her, you can spank her. She'll be like, okay, and do a cartwheel right out the room. It's just like it don't even matter.
Right.
However, that's the other part too, is like meeting your kids where they are. That's vital too, and that's been intentional as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just taking time, like really truly getting just to know your kids and just being there and understanding like what makes them tick.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes them tick is probably most likely not what made you tick.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's one of the things that you have to be intentional about. And I think it takes, the guidance of God to have a certain level of awareness, and not only just the awareness, but strategies to execute as you go, because there is a natural inclination and temptation to just replay the models that you've seen, right? And redo the things that you know, right?
Yes.
But every person has their own unique makeup. And you could try to put one cookie cutter approach on the wrong personality type, and you could kind of break the spirit of your kid, right? And so I think it takes a high level of spiritual and emotional intelligence to identify the nature of your child and come up with strategies to say, oh yeah, I'm going to help them, be shaped in the image of what they're called to be. It's also this thing when we talk about identity as fathers, we can feel the pressure of trying to make our kids us, right? As opposed to knowing that, hey, I have this responsibility to steward this person for a certain amount of time, to give them the tools and the equipment that they need to go off and do all that they're purposed to do. And it's a significant responsibility. And I want to do that at an optimal level according to who they are. So I think you need revelation from God so that you really understand the identity of what it is you are dealing with in this person.
Yes.
And then through wisdom and knowledge and understanding, raise them up in the direction of what their purpose is, right? And then, of course, applying emotional maturity and emotional intelligence while you do it too. And it takes an array of skills to do it. And, but it's challenging, right?
So let me back up, right? So let me go a little bit deeper. So I told you I have my oldest daughter is 23. My oldest daughter is not biologically my daughter, but she's my daughter.
Yeah.
So she's my wife's cousin. She became my daughter through a tragic accident of the passing of her mother.
Yeah.
And so we've raised her since she was about 3 years old. Mm. And so me and my wife were in our early 20s. I mean, fresh out of college. We're still trying to figure out life. And we're raising like elementary, middle school. We're not even raising like babies. We're talking about like you've already somewhat developed some level of identity, right? Yeah. And so to your point, at that point, we're doing exactly what was done to us. Yeah. And so even to a greater level. And I'll give you an example. Her and her brother, because they're 3 years apart, I remember this time they had done something, and it was just, again, we were trying to show them like what you all are receiving from us right now is above and beyond. We could be giving you just the basics, the necessities. And so we said, all right, we're going to strip you down to your basics. You're going to wear, and it was almost cruel, so to speak, now that I think about it, you know what I mean? Like, we sent them to school in Bobos, like, I'm not talking about the ones with the straps on them, you know what I mean? Right. Like, we going to bring your food up to you in the room as if you were, like, in jail, because we were trying to teach them a lesson, you know what I mean? Because these are the things that you don't realize what you're experiencing right now in this life. You got your own room, you got TVs, you got all these things. Right. However, you're not appreciative of those things. And so we were being, like, really, really strict and really stern. And so I remember even going to the school to say, hey, you ain't got your Bobos on. Like, nah, put the Bobos back. And they were slick. So they took the other shoes in the, in the book bag, and they said, oh, yeah, we're going to swap these out. He ain't going to know. Yeah. But see, I got the flexibility. I'll pop up. Kenny say, sometimes you got to pop out and show people.
Oh, yeah.
And so we popped up, and I'm like, oh, you want to change your shoes, huh? Oh, yeah, put them back on. Not realizing what that would do to them, for their confidence. Yeah. Now you're embarrassed because now you walk around with your Bobos on. Yeah. And see, not realizing what that experience did for us, because as young kids growing up in the 90s, like, your feet and all of that was important.
Oh, yeah, it was everything.
And so now I've just taking that trauma that I had and placing it on my child.
Yeah, you
Not
transferred it to another
bingo,
generation. Yeah,
and not realizing that.
yeah,
So now, fast forward, now my oldest daughter now she's entering college. Now I got my younger two, and I'm learning from those lessons and say, yeah, I probably missed the mark on there. But
yeah.
I've also had to go back, and this is the other part too about parenthood and being a dad, that I went back to my daughter and said, you know what? I think I might have got it wrong.
Yeah, I
And
made a
I
mistake there.
apologize. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
I should not have done that. That was a little too much.
Yeah.
And I'm sincerely sorry, and I apologize for that. And it allowed me to be different to the younger two.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much inside what you said. It's the accountability.
Yes, sir.
But it's also knowing that you're the source of affirmation and validation,
Mm-hmm.
and having the awareness of that you sit in that seat, and then applying strategies and tools that does not strip that part away, right?
Yes.
And yes, I mean, discipline is important.
Yes.
It's very important.
Yes. Yes.
Because you were really trying to attack nuances of entitlement and not being grateful and all these different types of things, which are great lessons, right? But at the same token, it's about having the balance and then having the strategies so that you give those life lessons in a healthy way, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest, sometimes in life we learned in an unhealthy way, and
that's what made us who we are.
Yeah, yeah. And it takes time and life to help us unravel that for what it is. And I think there's multiple sides to that coin. It's sometimes we just live in the denial, and it takes us a long time to even admit something was unhealthy. But then sometimes we'll do the opposite. I think sometimes very early in life we'll identify something as unhealthy, and it'll make us have a bit of a heart of judgment towards our parents.
Oh, most definitely.
And we'll put our parents in a very scrutinizing, judgmental space, and that's where some of our "I will nevers" will come from.
There you go.
But then when life gets to life, and you're in the seat,
that never becomes, well, maybe I'll just a little bit.
Yeah. And it makes you have to revisit some of these things, and many of us have the benefit of it transforming our perspectives because we've lived a bit, can see a thing from a totally different lens, or at least, the scriptures talk about being in touch with the feelings of the infirmity of another person.
Yes, sir.
Or considering yourself lest you fall. Like there's a certain humility that you can come to once you get into these seats.
Yes.
And it may not make the sentiment you had before untrue, meaning, hey, this right here was unhealthy. But there's a different level of like empathy and humility about it that you can come to through your own experiences, right? And it can take away some of the judgment,
And a lot of that deals with, and I talk to people now about the one thing is context, right?
Yeah.
You can see something happen, you can know something happened. However, if you don't know the full context in which it happened, it definitely gives you a different light.
Yeah.
Right? And so I remember having a meal with my parents, and this is after I've gone through some counseling and some therapy, and said, you know what, I just want to talk, and I want to share some things with you, but I'm not going to beat you up about it.
Yeah.
Because the thing is this, you all did the best that you could.
Yeah.
You did. Knowing the circumstances, my parents became parents at 18.
Yeah.
And all they were doing was what they saw.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, how much can you really expect?
Yeah, I think that's a generational thing. I mean, my parents became parents at like 18 and 19, and got married like super early and all that type of stuff.
So like really, so you start to look and imagine, say, okay, like you're expecting Uncle Phil out of a 19-year-old?
Yeah. Oftentimes, parents, and listen, so, first of all, you are selflessness at young, early 20s
Yeah.
to decide to, hey man, we're going to become parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even in the fun way.
No,
just
no, right,
we're gonna become parents
right.
by making a sacrifice here, right?
Yes.
But many of us, because of seeing what our parents went through and becoming parents very early, we might have intentionally said, "Hey, you know what? First, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna do
Bingo.
these things.
Bingo.
And then I'll do it,
Yes.
right?"
Yes.
And so you would think even that would better equip us. But even after doing that, you come to learn you're always growing, evolving, and developing and coming further into who you are as a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, a season of college and all that was so critical to at least give me a good foundation and a window of time to further understand who I am.
Yeah.
So imagine at 18 and 19 becoming a
Bruh,
parent, you really don't fully know who you are, and you're becoming who you are while trying to help form and shape another person simultaneously.
yes.
It gives a lot of room and opportunities for mistakes, and things you may not even intend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then most people have a couple of life transformations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throughout their life. So, the end all be all version of yourself may be very different. It's like a person who had kids very early, and then whether it's once they got older, they had some transformative experience with God or something that
Yep.
became a
Yep.
total different version
Yep.
of themselves.
Yep.
Or once they became a grandparent, you're now looking at them and saying, "Who is
Well,
this person?" Like, because
you wasn't like that with me.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, we see it all the time, man. And I think, like I said, it's just all it takes is one experience,
Yeah,
and then once you have that context of it, to say, okay, all right, I can give you a little bit more empathy.
yeah,
It doesn't necessarily change the experience that you had,
yeah.
because what I went through as a child didn't like all of a sudden warp into something else. However, understanding like what my parents were going through at that time, to say, okay, I see why you did that.
Yeah, understanding the whys and how easy it is to even make some of the things we may deem as a mistake,
Yeah,
right?
because you at that point you say, you know what, I can't really fault you for doing it. I probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
And so now you're like, well, you know what, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And look how I turned out. Like I was
Yeah.
like, I'm okay. Like, I'm not that
Right.
bad of a person.
Right.
And so, and again, it goes back, what the devil may have meant for evil,
Yeah.
God turned it into something good.
Yeah, for sure.
And so those are the things that, again, those are the lessons that now you even take into your fatherhood journey, to say, okay, you know what, baby, we're gonna use this as a learning lesson.
Yeah.
To say that, we're gonna just learn from it.
Yeah.
And let's not allow this mistake to hinder us going forward.
Yeah. Man, so June is I think mental health
Mhm.
awareness
It
month.
is.
And
Mhm.
I think it's particularly men's mental health awareness.
We need it.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you try to work with people in your ethos to create an environment to optimize your health and your mental health, your emotional health, and how that then translates into, how you father, right?
Mhm.
How do you create an environment that you have the empathy you need, not just giving out empathy, but receiving empathy and all the other things that feed your soul and feed your spirit and all of that, so that you can be your best self as a father.
So I'll be honest and transparent. I have a hard time receiving.
Hmm.
It's just I don't know what it is. I have a hard time receiving because
Yeah.
I usually am the giver. And so what I'll do is, one, I try to get me a run or walk in first thing in the morning to kind of help my mental health. Exercising definitely helps keep
Yeah.
that stress down. But having the conversation and being a safe space for individuals, like you and I have open dialogue all the time. And
Yeah.
I mean, you and I get on the phone and, bro, we go hours. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
We were
yeah,
like,
for
we
sure.
almost to the point like, yeah, bro, we don't took up that.
Yeah,
Tell the wife I
yeah,
said
yeah.
hello.
Yeah, give your wife my best,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Give her my best, bro.
And so,
Yeah.
just again, but sometimes we have to be that for each other, right?
For sure.
Because when you're experiencing life like we experience life,
Mhm.
you're a husband, you're a father, your business ventures, things like that. We know what that stress is like.
Yeah.
And so sometimes just saying, hey, bro, I'm just checking in on you.
Yeah.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if you're not, know that I got you, bro. I'm here. You can talk
Yeah.
about that. You can let loose over here.
Yeah, and having a place to ventilate,
Yes.
but a place where people authentically care too. You
Yeah.
know,
And they're
Because-
not just being nosy or saying like, bro,
Yeah.
word on the street, like,
yeah, or the proverbial, how's it going?
yeah.
But I really didn't want to know.
No.
Right? No, it's like, no, I'm
I'm
literally
like,
asking,
yes.
how's it going?
Yeah.
And as soon as you go, I'm there for it. I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I got time
Let's
for
go.
it. Like, bro, let's
Let's
go.
go. Let's go.
Tell me about it, man. Talk
Yeah.
to me about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so crucial for men, to have that. I think, we're coming into new days, but historically it's always felt that it was more expected for women to have places that they can share how they feel and ventilate their emotions and have people that care and that, with their girlfriends and things like that can cry together and stuff. And even expecting men to be a soft place for them to land, right? Men don't always have a place as a soft place to land, and because it's something that has not always been cultivated amongst men for ourselves, men don't always know how to be a soft place for other men to land.
True.
We're
That's
all
true.
out here in the thick of it, getting it out the mud, out there, hey man, toughen up, man, you know what I mean? That type of thing. And so it's a blessing to find relationships with people that you can really share, and they not only empathize, but they can relate too.
Yes.
And they come with the counsel and the wisdom of God, and can speak to the man that you really are, no matter what circumstance you're in, and give godly counsel and wisdom to help you get right back in the game and be the best father you need to be the best husband, to be the best businessman, because it's the totality of who you are that serves all these areas in your life,
So, we talk about intentionality, right?
Yeah.
And so, ironically, I have this shirt on that says "Support your friends."
Oh yeah.
Right. It was intentional.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because you're my friend.
Oh man, that's
Right.
what's up.
And not only do I support your ventures
Yeah.
and what you're doing, I support you as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a black man.
Yeah.
And so, what does that support look like, though? We talk about this mental health thing, right? And so, a lot of times, the support that we give doesn't always come back in the form in which we give it.
Yeah.
And so you may be in a season where you say, Barry, I'm a little short on something, the mortgage got to be due. And so I may say, oh, Joe, I got you.
Yeah.
And so, however, I may be in a season where I'm like, Joe, man, I'm really I'm going through it, man. I'm trying to figure out the next move, what purpose God has on my life. And that support may just be like, let's talk through that.
Yeah.
Bro, let's spend some time going deep into that.
Yeah.
Or that support may be like, bro, I'm dealing with this issue with my oldest daughter and I don't know what to do, bro. I'm about to snap. I don't and you're talking me off the ledge, bro, it's your daughter.
Yeah.
You love her. She made a mistake. And so being there and just being in the moment, and we talk about being present and taking that accountability and just being there for our friends and for black men is key right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think us even having this dialogue, these types of conversations, I think it leads us to the path of more men being able to receive it, because that's the other part too. I can admit that. And see, that's the other thing about me. I'm becoming more understanding of who I am, and that I know that I have a hard time receiving help.
Yeah.
But once I admit it and I put it out there in the atmosphere and it's out there now knowing you can say, Barry, listen, bro, I know you have a hard time receiving this, but bro, you're going to take this. You're going to take this support.
Yeah.
And so now the conversation is shifts. So now I'm convicted, okay.
Yeah.
My friend knows me and he knows that I need this. And now he's showing up for me.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to say. It's creating depth in the relationships amongst men, and it's normalizing that, but also celebrating that, right?
Yeah.
Celebrating men and who they are, that depth to know each other, but also the permission to have accountability and things like that, right? And a lot of times when we think of the term accountability, it's like this watchdog. No, I mean, I think accountability is more about the more I actually know who you are as a man, and not just bury the person, but I even can see the spirit of who you are. I get a lens into who you're called to be and your potential. I can always be pointing you back to that. that and celebrating your efforts towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get down, man, speak those encouragements. Like, man, this is who you are, Barry, man. I know it's a hard time right
Speak
now.
to the king in me.
Yeah,
Speak to the
exactly.
king in me.
I know it's a hard time right now, man, but you can do this, bro.
Yeah.
Like, or like, oh man, you're dealing with that challenge with your daughter, and I know, it could give the temptation for you to do this, man, but who you really are, you're this, bro. So let's make the wise choices to point towards this, because this is who you're ultimately called to be, to help her become that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That type of thing.
Yes.
And it's that level of really deep, real relationship and the accountability to it, right?
Yeah.
The openness and the normalization of that type of exchange and the celebration of that type of exchange, right? Championing that amongst men in general, and particularly black men and all that type of thing, man. And it's really the spirit of why I wanted to have this type of conversation, right? Because maybe I could have sat down here and just ventilated myself about, what it is to be a father and all the nuances. But I said, oh, man, I want to get some other men of great character that I know to talk through these nuances, right? And get perspective, right? And have that exchange, right? We both have been in marriage for some years and fathers for some years. So there has been a couple of versions of ourselves, right?
Yes.
So like if you were to look back at a younger Barry, embarking on this, right? And some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, like what type of jewels would you give Barry, the young Barry, from the seat that you're in now as older, mature Barry?
Time, man. Just take that time and be intentional about the time. Like I said, like early on, like I know even like as a husband, I neglected my wife, like because I was grinding, trying to provide, trying to do these things, trying to create a life that I didn't have growing up. As you said, get it out the mud. I'm trying to again, we grew up in the hood, and so I'm like, I'm not going back to that.
Yeah. Let me drop this nugget, and I want you to continue down the path, but I think one of the things I've learned is often our process of being a father and our process of being even a husband, well, we're actually often is informed by trying to heal that broken version of ourselves.
Bingo.
And the younger Barry or the younger Joseph and the wounds that came from our past experiences and what we did or did not get. We're endeavoring to do a thing to heal that younger version of ourselves. And, we feel that, oh man, if we, provide these things to those that we love vicariously, we will get the healing to that younger version of ourselves that,
and it won't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. And again, to your point, it sounds and looks good. I think that's the version that we're trying to, ultimately trying to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
But not that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Because all it does is just creates a new set of problems.
That's it.
You may not realize if you're overcompensating in something, trying to heal that version, you're creating an imbalance in some other way.
And that's exactly what I did. I created an imbalance of not being actually in the moment with my family.
Yeah.
And so that would be probably the first thing. And then giving myself grace, man.
Wow.
A lot of times, like, man, we feel like we got to be perfect. We got to hit the mark every single time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid to tell my kids, baby, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, the burden of being a superhuman, I kind of touched on it earlier, once again, especially as being young black men and things like that. You just really feel this burden to really take things to another level.
Yeah.
And it creates this superhero complex in some ways. And it can...
You get to save everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And make you feel like you can't be vulnerable
Right.
and all that type of thing. And, you're just trying to do everything, right? And giving yourself the grace, man, is so key. And it's sometimes challenging to do,
Yeah.
because it means not doing that extra thing and sitting down for a moment and actually relaxing, right?
Yeah.
Or if you make a mistake and you come up a little short, being okay with that, to say, you know what, I gave it my best, but I came up a little short, Or, oh, I made a mistake, give me some grace.
Give me some grace.
It first starts with giving yourself that grace.
That's it.
And it's often hard to do that.
That's it. It's funny because we want the grace from God first, and then we want the grace from other people, but sometimes we don't even give it to ourselves. And a lot of times, those mistakes and things, and we'll hold on to it, but God has already forgiven us for it. Like
Yeah.
he's like, oh, that's passe. Like I ain't even thought about that. You repented, and like we moved on, but we're still holding on to it.
Yeah.
And so we take those things into our journeys as fathers,
Right.
and being able to do that same thing for our kids.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to hover over them to say, yeah, you didn't clean up your room the last time, and so you like, dang, like, dude, like you still bringing that up.
Yeah.
But how do
yeah.
you feel when your parents bring that up? That thing for you.
Yeah.
And
man.
so those are the things, like I said, once you start to be able to give yourself grace,
Yeah.
then you can start to lend it out to other people too, in
And
the
I-
same form.
I think there's a powerful nuance underneath what you're saying. I find that a lot of times fathers become like the first image for a child of
Yes.
God, right?
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
how a father establishes their relationship with a child can often inform how that child experiences God until that child can mature into their own walk and experience with God for themselves, right? Now, I want to say as a counter thought and merge these things together, the concept of grace, like, I think that's why it's so vitally important that we take God into any of these endeavors we're talking about, whether it's being a husband, but especially being a father, because not relying on our own strength to execute a thing, because there's so many things in life that are challenging to do perfectly. And if you're trying to do it all within your own strength and your own power, I feel like you're almost sure to fall short, right?
Most definitely.
But
Most
if
definitely.
you take the grace of God with you, he can not only enable you to do things in exceptional, impactful ways, but he can also give you the grace in your shortcomings, and he can allow the spirit of it all to work together in a way that blessings come from it, right? And it won't be all, contingent on you crossing every T and dotting every I, but he'll let it all come together for the optimal good. And then as you experience the grace of God in your journey, through the humility of that, you're able to give grace to others.
Yes.
And walk in humility and give that over to, those that you love. And that strengthens them in their validation and in their affirmation, because their value is not performative, right?
Oh,
Their
man.
value
Yes.
is more in their identity and relationship to you, to know, oh man, I have a good father that always speaks well of me, thinks well of me, and it's not just centered on my performance. It's tied to my identity. I'm a son.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
daughter,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I think we're able to do that well by first being a son of someone.
Hello.
Right? Being a daughter of someone. And that's just not on the natural level. It's on the spiritual level. Like, as we perfect being a son of God, a daughter of God, we can receive that type of love and grace. And then ideally, we're experiencing that love and grace through our earthly fathers and mothers, and we can just pour that down from one generation to the next, and it promotes health, right? It promotes prospering. It promotes really what's the most important thing, which is legacy, and a culture of healthy legacy, because all the performative things that we do are temporary, but it's the things that we pass down, and it's not just about passing down the materials. We pass down the materials as fuels and tools to continue to promote the culture that we instill through our life, right?
That's right.
And I think God is so critical to that, to give us the strategies and the cultures and the practices and things like that that's just, embodied through our life and how we love, right?
So
that type of
let
thing.
me. The other thing about that too, right, is you talk about grace and it's showing that unconditional love, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing that we get from God, right? It's
Yeah.
the unconditional love. Like no matter what we do, good, bad, or indifferent, He's always going to love us.
Yeah.
And I think reinforcing that to our children is so vital.
Yeah.
Because you think about certain things, right? This day and age, especially in our community, suicide rates are the highest they've ever been.
Yeah.
Bullying.
Yeah.
And while our kids have everything at their disposal now,
Mm-hmm.
they're also experiencing more pressure. All these other things that they experienced as a child growing up. And so one mistake in their mind is like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna take myself out.
Yeah. Life is over.
Life is over.
Yeah.
And we have to show them that not only does God say, no, life is not over, we're saying life is not over.
Yeah.
It's okay, baby. It's all right. You made a mistake.
Yeah.
And those are the conversations that, we have with our kids, is that you made a mistake. No matter what you do, no matter what it is, Daddy's still gonna love you.
Yeah. You are my daughter.
You are my daughter.
I love you.
I love you. And
Yeah.
there's nothing that's gonna ever stop me from loving you. Like even
Yeah.
when my kids have done things that I couldn't imagine that they've done, that they would ever do, I still tell them, I still love you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you're going to do that's going to stop me from loving you. I may not have liked what you did,
Yeah.
but I'm still going to love you, and you're still going to be my child. You're
Yeah.
still going to be my child.
Yeah.
And that's what we get from God.
Man, you know what? I want to leave those that are watching, and particularly men, that type of affirmation to them,
Yeah.
right? And then I want to wrap it on the encouragement we would give to men that are out there fighting the good fight
Yeah.
of faith, man, trying
Yeah.
to be a good father.
Yeah.
You know, I particularly want to say to men that, you know, you're loved, right?
You are. You are.
know, the fact
You are.
that you were even predestined to become a father means that God had an invested interest in something in your DNA, your mind, your soul, your capabilities, and your gifts, that he wanted it to be perpetuated into the next generation. And, you know, you should have the confidence that, you know, God didn't make a mistake in that investment, right? And to take that responsibility of the investment of all that you are, right? Your gifts, your talents, your makeup, your DNA, your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, and to steward it well, and don't let life kind of beat you down from the pursuit to invest that well, right?
Yeah.
And your children,
Yep.
right? And we also pray that, man, you have a community of people that builds you up and affirms you for exactly who you are and your value, right? Okay. And then, like, Barry, what encouragements would you give, you know, to a maybe a new father, someone just embarking on the endeavor, man? Maybe their lady just told them yesterday, I think I'm pregnant. You know, what encouragements would you give, man?
I would tell them, man, enjoy the journey, man. The dad that you are today is not going to be the dad that you're going to be in 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not. And because I can even see it even in myself that I'm not the dad that I was. As I told you, like I was a firm, heavy-handed disciplinarian. Now, like, man, bro, my kids, they got me, man.
Yeah.
They got me, you know.
Warrior dad.
Yeah, they got me.
Yeah.
And so that comes with also being a girl dad too.
Yeah.
But I would tell them, man, enjoy the journey, enjoy the ride, embrace it, empower your kids, love on them, man, because so many kids are going through so many different challenges that we have no idea that they're going through. And so, and talk to them. Have that dialogue. Like, don't be afraid to talk to your kids.
Yeah.
Like, put the phones down, put the devices down, and just go old school, man, and just sit at the table like, yo, like, what happened today?
Yeah.
Like, what are you feeling?
Yeah.
I even had the conversation with my kids one time, and I said, you know, I asked them a question, how can I be a better dad?
Oh, wow.
How can I be a better dad to you?
Yeah.
Like, I understand, like, I can be great, but how can I be better? Because, see, it's always about improving, always about growing.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, my wife is in education, so it's all about that growth. Like, if you're here, like, how do we get you to here? How can I be a better dad for you?
Wow.
And I think my middle daughter said, you know, it came back to discipline. Oh, you just jump to conclusions. You know, you see something on the floor and you automatically assume that I'm not going to get it up. Well, you're a procrastinator like your dad. So I know.
Right.
I know.
I recognize that trait.
Yeah.
Right.
And then go along the journey with them, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was one of the things that in trying to correct a behavior with my middle daughter in procrastination, I said, we're going to do a check-in. And so I'm going to work on, I have these things. Again, opening them up so they understand what's going on. These are the things that I'm working on. And I have a tendency to procrastinate the same way you procrastinate.
Yeah.
And so we'll give ourselves a week's time. Midway, we're going to check in to kind of see where we are on those things.
Yeah.
And so, one, it comes back to accountability. It comes back to grace. But it also comes back to reflecting and saying, okay, I'm not perfect either.
Right.
I struggle with the same things that you're struggling with, and it's okay. And so let's get through it together.
We're going to do this together.
Let's do this together. And so the same way we do this with our kids, let's do this with men. Let's do this with fathers. Let's be in this fight together, man.
Yeah.
And you're not alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, send a bat signal.
hit the bat line. Yeah, we all got a red phone,
right.
man.
Blink twice and say, hey, man, listen, I'm out here doing this fatherhood thing, but, and I need your help,
Yeah.
And let's support our friends, man.
Hey, man. We here at Para, we're here to support you, man. We want to encourage the fathers. First of all, happy Father's Day to each and every father that's out there. Stay in it, man. Keep fighting the good fight. It's your example. It's your walking along with those that you love. It's your affirmation and your validation that God predestined you to be the person in that seat for that family and those children that we want you to stand strong in, man. It's been more than a pleasure today to chop it up about fatherhood with my man, Barry McCauley.
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. Happy Father's Day. We're going to see you guys on the next one. We want to hear the comments, the statements. We want to hear from the men. We're going to talk to you soon. Peace.